Matusic's taking Rose right now. Shuts it down. That's first round finish.
Curtis versus Campbell.
This might be the upset. He's got it. Suarez gets it done in the first round. Coming in to upset the show right here tonight. He's hurt. It's a level from one. He said he's a look-see-do fighter. It doesn't get much better than replicating a John Jones finish.
Hello everybody, welcome to the post-fight show. Still here from the Liverpool Olympia. FCC 40 just wrapped. They're taking down the cage right now. And we had a fantastic night of action. Jason, me and you commentated. We called it. We were constantly surprised, but also we're so impressed by so many performances. We're going to give a performance of the night. We're going to talk about the fight of the night as well. But let's just start with the last fight, the main event, of course. Curtis Campbell came in here, needed to defend that belt if he wanted to continue to maintain that spot as like the best featherweight in Europe. I'm going to say it. What did you think of the performance? Did you expect that kind of a finish from him?
I mean, it didn't even look like a challenge. It was almost disappointing, only the sense that you hoped you would see him get some sort of challenge given to him. But it was also incredibly impressive and very much lived up to the hype because it's exactly what you're supposed to see from somebody that's that big of a prospect. He looked flawless, untouchable, and completely took out Daniel Matusic. It was a very impressive performance.
We normally see Curtis get it done with the striking, wasted no time this time, just going straight for the takedown, but also heard post-fight, he said, you know, doing what the Russians do, and that's what he did. He put him in an unescapable dominant position and unloaded heavy ground and pound. With that kind of a wrestling style, I mean, it makes it seem like there's less and less people that could give this guy problems.
Yeah, and I think that's the real question. Is it another FCC defense? Is he going to the UFC now? What's going to happen here? Because I think he's everything that somebody like the UFC or any big promotion around the world is exactly looking for. Somebody that comes out, puts on highlight reel performances, takes out his opponents, makes it look easy, has style, has like his own look, has his own thing that stands out. That's very, very easy to promote.
Come on, big man, you know who I am. I know who you are. Let's fucking get it.
This is all wrapped into one person in Curtis the Pink Panther Campbell. He looked outstanding tonight and every bit the prospect we thought he was.
Yeah, and the champion as well, as he is a defending champion now as well, which is very impressive. It was asked to him if he'd be going to the UFC. He seems to be just waiting for the phone call. Until then, maybe we'll see him back in March as well when we come back for the 1st of March, FCC 41, don't forget about it, and defend that title again, or maybe he'll get a phone call in that time, who knows. Yep. Someone else who unfortunately didn't get the win tonight when going for the title was Emil Vujokovic, who has been wanting that title for so long. We knew that it was going to be a tough fight just based on the experience of his opponent, a 21-fight pro, not counting all his kickboxing fights as well. Suarez came in there the whole week. He's been aggressive. He's been, you know, fired up. And now he's a champion. Not maybe what we expected, but are you impressed with what he did with Emil, basically?
You absolutely have to be. And I think it's a testament to the fact that he does train with the Bonfim brothers. And I think he's upped his game over the past couple of years. You see those losses, you see that record, and it's easy to kind of count him out. But the things that he's done to level up his game in the last couple of years totally paid off tonight. And I think it was one of those things. We just had not seen somebody test Emil in that way. A lot of guys have tried to get him to the ground, just couldn't do it. He was already trying to throw submissions at him before he got that rear naked choke, and he was really putting Emil in danger. We never, ever saw that. And he went all the way with it. Every bit the prospect, Guilherme Soares, if you're paying attention, actually is. He took over that fight and looked outstanding.
Yes, Soares looked really good. And you talk about how Curtis Campbell has this complete package. I mean, taking out the fact the guy doesn't speak English, he's entertaining, he's full of bravado, you know, he's getting in his opponent's face. Even with the victory, you know, the celebration was gladiatorial. You know, it was visceral. He screamed the house down.
Glória a Deus! Seja feita a vossa vontade, assim na terra como no céu.
I hope we get to see him come back and defend that title as well. His record, you know, he's got 7 losses on it, but he's got 15 wins now, I think, as well. And some guys do have these strange records, and then they pull it back at the end of their pro career. And it was kind of a crazy sequence, the finishing sequence, which with 2 big guys kind of can happen. But I still think Suarez has great potential as a future champion.
Yeah, and you bring up a really good point. It's shades of Mick Stanton. There was a point where people were saying the exact same things about Mick Stanton. Then he turned his career around, upped his game, and won not only the title here, but won it in Cage Warriors and was really taking over the UK scene. And he took out Hyder Khan, who, is another former champion here. I think this is something that we'll see more of from Guilherme Suarez. I hope we get to see him back again because, like a lot of his fellow Brazilians, they've come back multiple times. I think he'll be happy to come back as well. It's a huge title on a huge stage on UFC Fight Pass. It means a lot to a guy like that. And he's upped his game, and he showed that tonight. Outstanding performance.
Someone else who kept on to their O this evening was Callum Connor, the future, the prospect from Manchester Top Team. We saw Manchester Top Team's Lerone Murphy, also an undefeated fighter in the UFC, in his corner tonight. Callum went through a bit of adversity early, and he knew he kind of would face that in a veteran of Diego Dixon, a guy that's, really game, just a lifelong martial artist. But he did look a little bit, at times you could see in his face, like, oh, this is dangerous right here. But he weathered the storm, got out of those bad positions, and when the finish came, it came instantly. It was a brutal body shot.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of what was probably the submission of the night, what we just had in the previous fight, this is one of those fights that was in the contendership for finish of the night on the feet. It was a very impressive performance, a lot of composure from a now 6-0, undefeated, on the knocking on the door of a title now. I mean, if you don't give him a title shot after that, I don't know what else you give him. He's definitely deserving, and man, did he look good tonight. Yeah,
I mean, doesn't seem too bothered about fighting for the title, just wants impressive performances and challenges, and to keep building that record, which is smart. He only cares about the UFC, and I think he'll probably end up there if he keeps moving forward. Someone else we got to see tonight, coming back for the first time in 2 years, Marlon Jones. Tons of support in this building here tonight for Marlon Jones. Lots of people in here to watch him move from 3-0 to 4-0 now, and going into 2025, it feels like the sky is the limit for this guy. He's such a great striker, but immediately took his opponent down and just wanted to get the finish straight away.
Yeah, another contender for one of the best finishes of the night. He just looked so impressive. He was so matter of fact, just went after it, took him down on the ground, and just pounded on the poor guy until the fight was over. There was pretty much nothing else you could say about that. It was just very, very dominant. Every bit what you think of Marlon Jones. Picked up where he last left off before the injury took place, and the place went crazy. I mean, Aspire showed up in a real force. He looks really, really, really good tonight.
We got to talk about, of course, our performance of the night, which happens to be the next fight we want to talk about anyway. Conor Walsh was 2-0 coming in here tonight, went pro this year, now 3-0, ends the year with a spectacular one-shot, 30-second finish. He came in as a look-see-do fighter. Also, John Jones is known as a look-see-do fighter, and then he got the same finish John Jones got just a couple of weeks ago against Stipe Miocic, a jumping, turning side kick to the body, beautifully set up, threw it hard, fast, to the liver, and completely destroyed his opponent.
Yeah, I mean, direct to the liver. Speaking of somebody that was in pain, it's similar to the Callum Connor one, but this one, there was just something so surgical about it. This is why I think it was the performance of the night and probably the best finish of the night, at least in terms of setting up the shot and landing a pinpoint one just right there to the liver. He was just so done and just writhing in agony on the floor. What a performance.
Yeah, Walsh looked concerned for him, went over to make sure he's okay, because we all thought he'd broken a rib or something. It was so impactful. Then the build up to this one, everyone I talked to, and even him himself has been talking about his hands and his heavy hands, and we saw him get knocked out with ground and pound. He knocks him out with a spinning back kick. Like, that was never talked about, but he has that in his arsenal. We did mention the diversity of his striking. We saw it again tonight. 30 seconds has to be performance of the night for Conor Walsh. The fight of the night, although, was our first fight, and a guy who's won fight of the night before, Billy the Kid Adams, who was talking to me, determined to get a finish. It turned into a war tonight against Machado. What did you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was a pillar to post, pretty much beating all throughout the fight, and we saw a lot of gameness from Machado. I mean, he really tried his best, and he did land a few good shots here and there, really tried to get his ground game going, but he just couldn't get it to the level that he needed to in order to win the fight or get any kind of significant points scored. Billy Adams took over on every aspect of this fight, whether it was on the ground, whether it was on the feet, hurt him early, hurt him often, and took over. Billy Adams is for real.
Yeah, he is. I mean, he got that same boxing pressure, but we're seeing more from Billy now. He's not over-committing because that's when he ends up on his back and gets taken down. And it was happening in this fight, but that just speaks to the dog that lives inside of Machado as a 40-year-old who's still fighting. And, you know, there's a reason he kept getting called back to these other promotions, because he puts on fights like that. You know, he's a warrior. He mean mugs you. He does not care, drops his hands, baits action. And I think Adams did a very good job not playing too much into that while still making it an entertaining fight and just chipping away. So we do have to give fight of the night to Billy Adams there and Machado, who opened up the card. Before we wrap this up, Jason, are there any other performances really that stood out to you or someone you want to give some shout out or credit to tonight?
I mean, that knockout from Jamil Nourzai, almost, picture for picture, the same thing that happened in the Kamaru Usman fight versus Jorge Masvidal. It was that crazy right hand that went over on the same side, kind of shoulder to shoulder there as it landed, and he basically woke him up with a ground and pound, which was very similar again to Usman. It was a fantastic knockout, by far the most resounding knockout of the whole night.
Yeah, I think Jamil, if Walsh hadn't done what he'd done, we'd probably be saying Jamil with the performance of the night, because he beat such a prospect. And this is a guy who's traveled from his home country of Afghanistan to England to become a fighter, to get to the UFC. And when he goes in there one-on-one against a guy that's looked at as a prodigy and has Anthony Pettis phoning him, and he takes him out and does it on the feet when this guy's a wrestler, it's like this guy's making the right choices about his life. And it's great to see Jamil here in FCC. I hope he sticks around, because I'm sure he's got more performances.
Yeah, and a big shout out I think we also have to give here to Ellie Davis. You know, she went back and forth with Victoria on the feet at first, and then started to take over there, and then started to negate the ground game as well, and eventually got the finish there as well. So Ellie Davis looked fantastic, and so did Jamie Davis. Was very similar to that. No relation, but it was a very similar thing. Sampaio was game. Hurt him early, but he came back and got the finish himself. So, I mean, you look at all the way from the top of this card all the way to the bottom, it was just full of surprises, great finishes, outstanding performances, really delivered for FCC 40, no doubt about it.
100%, yeah. Now the main card is full of 9 pro fights, many of these guys undefeated prospects that we saw again tonight that continue to protect those O's or got challenged in ways that we haven't seen them either. So whatever you can expect next time from Full Contact Contender, it's going to be more of the same. It's going to be quality fights on UFC Fight Pass now, with just these stacked pros getting better and better and looking to put on performances that go out worldwide to you guys at home. But thank you for joining us. If you watch the show, FCC 40 will be back. FCC 41 March 1st in the new year. It's going to be great. So thank you from myself, all of the FCC team, of course Jason here as well, and we will see you next time.